All right. Looks like we're live here on Parapost Network, Ghost Hunter advice page, as well as Matt's paranormal consultant army of pages. I think we've got 4 things linked up there. Um, Thanks for joining us. So today we're going to be talking about a monetization strategy for your podcasts called premium content. We're going to get into that as we roll through the show. We'll talk a little bit about what premium content is, some of the current packages, some of the current solutions. We're also going to get into the ethics. Is it right to charge somebody to listen to your podcast? Is it right to charge for premium content? I want to hear your opinions on this. So go ahead and drop that down in the comments. We'll pull it up as we get to it. But we've talked about paranormal investigating and the paranormal field being something that you spend money on more so than making money. But we are actually talking about an industry now as we get into content creation. So let's go ahead, let's get this music going, and we'll start today's show.
Advice from the pros. Stories from the haunted. You're listening to the Ghost Hunter Advice Podcast.
All right, and that was not the photo that should have shown. The one that I made was me and Matt, but that's another technical issue. Oh my god, if you would have been behind the scenes a minute ago when we were trying to get this thing going.
Well, I just want to say first to the audience, if I cut out or anything, I'd already let Tanner know. I'm using a hotspot to run the studio today, my mobile hotspot. So huge shout out to T-Mobile for at least letting me be able to do this.
Yeah, it's coming through, man. You're sounding really good, at least on my end. If you guys notice anything dodgy going on with the video, just pop it down, or the audio, pop it into the chat. Also, any thoughts you have on monetization of your podcast and content, the ethics of it, if you think you want to do it, if you don't, this is an open discussion. Go ahead and put that in the comments section. Now, when it comes to audio quality, the door to my studio is open. It's just me and my son here today, so I want to make sure he can get to me if he needs me. But I do want to go ahead and just jump into this. So we're talking premium content. We've all seen it. If you listen to podcasts, if you're in Apple, if you're in any of the podcasting apps, listening to things, everybody in the paranormal field, at least, is pushing premium content. Sign up for $5 a month to get access to the backlog of videos, the backlog of podcasts, premium content, and entire shows that are behind paywalls.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, Matt?
Well, it's like we've said before, as far as the paranormal is concerned, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between those of like us who make content for the entertainment side of it, or even, investigating. Investigating for me, huge. You don't pay. Clients already have enough to worry about, let alone the financial side of it. Now, obviously, there are some differences between the amateurs and those who actually go out and do this for a living. And that's the thing. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to. And like myself, if the opportunity presented itself for me to do this full time, would I do it? Absolutely. But it's why you're doing it, I think, is where the ethical side of it comes in. Are you doing it for the money, or are you doing it for the passion? As far as content is concerned, I think there's nothing wrong with it for the premium content. I mean, it's just like a pay-per-view TV channel, if you will. Like there's different sporting events and different shows and things. Anymore, we're in a digital age. They have to make some kind of revenue out of it. And I think our industry is no different. Like, obviously, there's a lot of recordings that we can do, recorded shows, recorded topics, stuff like that. But like this behind the scenes stuff, or like what you do with your writing, absolutely, make a little bit of extra. This stuff is expensive. and I don't know if the general populace is understanding of that. Like StreamYard, don't get me wrong, nothing against StreamYard, but their prices went up, and most of us can't afford that.
Mhm.
So we're looking at other revenues and avenues to platform off of. Um, but yeah, I think as long as the intention is there, I don't think there's anything wrong with making a little money out of this.
Yeah, and I'm doing some figures here. There's when you're putting on a podcast and you're putting on a professional production, there is a lot of cost involved. And what I've been talking about so far on the podcast, if you go back and you listen to some of the earlier shows, I go over what all goes into editing a podcast, what all goes into the planning and launch of the podcast, and that's just the time. You
Yeah.
guys that saw that episode, you saw how long it took me to edit and get production ready. Um, Edited, mixed, mastered, and ready to go, 2 minutes of audio. Now imagine doing that on a show that's, 45 minutes to an hour and a half. It's a good chunk
Yeah.
of your week.
Yeah.
Um, Ghost Hunter Advice, Killer Pros, these are shows that I do because it's just kinda it is a hobby, it is a passion of mine. I don't really charge or monetize. I'm not really doing premium content with those because I enjoy it, but shows that are heavily produced, BE Creepy Scream Time, which is the most produced podcast I have ever done, those 15 to 20-minute episodes take me 6 to 10 hours a week to do in post and add all that stuff in. The time alone there is basically another part-time job, and for the guys that I know that do this full time, they're not goofing off. A lot of these guys are spending 50, 60 hours a week getting these shows ready, getting them launched, especially with all of the add-ons and premium content they do to add value behind the scenes. It's a lot. But let's talk about the cost.
Mm.
So for Ghost Hunter Advice, this is again one that I'm not monetizing. I pay $84 a year for hosting. That's to have the RSS feed to go out and make sure that I own it. No one owns my show. No one can take it down. I own it. It's mine. The podcast website is about $350 a year.
Hmm.
We're already up to $400 a year spent on the podcast, and then there's the tech. There's the microphones, the things that I'm testing out, the things that I bring in for this podcast to have content. You're looking at probably another $1,000 a year there,
Yeah. Easily.
easily. Yeah,
Easily.
and
Yeah.
that's a hobby. With the premium content, with something that we're doing, my premium show, Truly Odd. It will have a free feed, but there's also premium content that's behind a paywall with that. There's also the licensing for the music and the sound effects. For BE Creepy, we have to license all of those sound effects. Each show, for the licensing there is an additional $160 a year to have access to Universal Music, which if you guys check out that last episode, I was talking about that. Um, it adds up, and it ends up being to run a podcast being anywhere from a hobby podcast of several $100 a year to a big production, which sometimes we're bringing in voice actors, we're doing things, and it becomes a business,
Yep.
because it costs thousands of dollars a year to put out these professional productions. That's not even including the software. If when once we upgrade to Adobe, we're looking at another couple $100 a year just to have access to the editing software to do that. Currently, I paid 150 for the editing software that I use now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, once you actually break it down, I mean, like from just me, I'm not in depth like you are with all this stuff. Like even just with my show, Empowering My Field, I'm paying it's about $50 to $60 a month for just the streaming service itself.
Mhm,
Plus, I'm making payments on my setup. I have $10,000 worth of electronic equipment down here that I'm making payments on. So you're looking at another $300 a month for that. And everything else. And it does get expensive. It does. And I mean, and that's just for the show. That's just for the show. Like, I'm not even talking about, my merchandise that I have,
mhm,
or like you were saying with the software. Like, I pay for my licensing for my videos that I do for Paravid Studios, the Canva subscriptions. I mean, Canva luckily hasn't changed, so it's only a couple bucks, but it adds up. Everything adds up. I mean, I'm paying probably close to, I'd say about 600 a month.
mhm. Yeah.
and that's just low production.
And that's what I'm talking about when I say, like, you want your podcast if you are planning to monetize, it's basically a lot of us will monetize a podcast just so we're not going out of pockets
Yeah.
on so much. Now, I've heard the argument, and this is what kinda pisses me off in chat rooms where they're like, "Well, nobody's asking you to do this, and you're doing it because it's a hobby, and no I shouldn't have to pay for this." Well, one, it's premium content. The episodes behind the paywall are of a certain quality and level that they are worth some people to pay for it. Not everybody's gonna be my customer. Not everybody's gonna wanna pay for it, but it is entertainment. I mean, you pay for Netflix, you pay for all of the other streaming services you do, and podcasting is the same way. Or there's ads. I mean, I'm not gonna get into that today, but, this is some of, the thought process that goes into, "Alright, this show needs to be something that gives us a little bit back," because it doesn't matter how much you love this, there's only so long that you can really put the work and the grind into doing something like podcasting that's so labor intensive without getting something back from it.
Well, and I don't look at it this way as you're paying for the content. It's more of a donation. You're giving back to your content creators, especially like people like us on Parapost. If we have an opportunity to help each other out, go for it. If you, for me personally, if I'm watching somebody like say Ghost Hunter Advice, if I'm watching your show on a regular basis, I love the content, I love what you're putting out, and you start breaking it down, and I start realizing, holy crap, it is actually expensive, but I still want to support you. Then yeah, I'm going to donate. I'm going to pay to get that premium content, whether I watch it or not. I mean, look at these YouTubers. There are YouTubers out there with these subscriptions, and there's different things that you can do, different tier levels that you can be a part of. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it because it does cost money, and it's the same way with like going to the movies or going, out to eat or anything. You're paying for it. You are paying for that service,
Mhm.
and it it does give back. It does make that's what I love about it. Economics is it does come back. It comes back and around. And that's especially important for us as podcast hosts, for us to help each other out, because it's without that we can't do StreamYard wouldn't be a thing, Restream wouldn't be a thing, all these other streaming services platforms, they wouldn't be a thing without us giving back to them. So I mean, if somebody's putting out premium content, yeah, support them.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. There's more than one way to support a podcast. So when we're talking about this, I don't want to be like, oh, if you can't afford to support us financially, then you don't get a lot of
Mhm.
cool stuff. There will always be a free RSS feed with
Oh, of
content that's there
course.
for people to listen to. But share it out. There's a couple of different ways to support a show. There's monetary. There's signing up for the premium. And then there's just telling your friends about it and sharing it out.
Oh yeah.
Because again, that grows, and soon, like, some of those people who come in will purchase the premium content.
Yeah.
Or the more people that are listening, if you're listening to our shows and there are ads, listen to those ads, because that
Mm.
also brings in some revenue. But
I'm not
yeah,
a I like to skip the ads, but that's
yeah.
just me.
Oh, and even
But
if you skip them, as long as the podcast is being downloaded,
oh yeah.
fine, that counts. That counts. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna tell you to skip the ads because I don't wanna tick off people that are advertising on shows, but yeah. But
But no.
let's get into premium. So
Yeah.
there's an evolution that happens with podcasters. All of us start podcasting because we're passionate about something. Very few people, well, a lot of people start specifically to make money, but they tend to burn out pretty quick because this is a very passion based industry. And don't make a mistake in thinking that it's not an industry. It is. Unlike paranormal investigations, unlike ghost hunting, podcasting, and we'll stick with podcasting because there's an industry for podcasting and content creation and writing. Let's stick with podcasting right now. Podcasting industry alone is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. We're
Mhm.
talking about money coming in to shows from advertisements, from premium content, and from acquisitions from like Spotify and different channels to have you exclusively on their networks. Those big deals, I think the last big one I heard about was like 1.5 billion
Mm.
or 100 and something million. I don't remember. I was gonna pull this up, before I got on, but I didn't. but there's a lot of money in this industry.
Hmm.
So, and there's kind of a progression. We get into this and we podcast because we're passionate about it. We want to give something back.
Yeah.
With Ghost Hunter Advice, that's exactly how this started. With paranormal podcasting for me, that's exactly how this started. I just wanted to connect with other people, share something that I'm passionate about, and connect with listeners. And it's fantastic, and I love it. And then we stop just barfing onto a microphone and we start doing something called hygiene editing. So that's when you get the editing software and you start going through and you take out the ums and you do the stuff that I showed you how to do at the start of the editing episode, where we're just cleaning up the audio to make it a little bit more enjoyable.
Yep.
Maybe taking out the background hiss, and we start playing with things like that and doing a little bit more mastering. And then we go into content editing. We start actually taking out, you know what? This 10-minute segment was a rant. It has nothing to do with why people are listening to this show. I'm going to cut it. You know what? This little paragraph that I said actually goes a lot better if I say it before I say this other thing. And you start flipping things around and doing content editing. And then a lot of people get into soundscaping and putting music behind it and putting sound effects. And then suddenly you have an audio production. You're getting licensing for different things and you have a great production value for your show. And with that production value, you'll notice an explosion in listenership because it's much more pleasant to listen to. It's more succinct. And people who just want information get the information. People who want to connect with you are able to connect with you because you keep those little points in there. You start doing this stuff where you're tracking your conversions. You're looking at Apple Connect, Podcaster Connect, because that gives you the exact point where a lot of people are dropping off your podcast. And if you notice that, okay, on several shows at the 15-minute mark, I lost 30% of my audience, you get to go to those little spots and you get to see what they hate about your show. And then you can stop doing it. When you start making those little modifications and stuff, you get to where Ghost Hunter Advice is now, where we have a 94% listen through rate on all of our episodes.
That's awesome.
It's super engaged audience, and when you get there and the audience grows, because that's where you're gonna start seeing incremental growth in your show,
Hmm.
you get to a place where you're spending a lot of time doing this, you're spending a lot of resources and a lot of finances, and if you haven't already, you start looking for ways to monetize. Ads are always the first place that people start and try to go because that's what we see. And it gives us a little bit back. And I'm not going to lie, that ad revenue in the past and coming up with this new show that does help keep the lights on. It takes care of a lot of the overhead, but the magic happens with premium content.
Yep.
That is for paranormal podcasters. That is probably the number one way to monetize your show so that you can spend more time doing the thing you love. Lead with passion, level up your show, and grow your listenership. And this is I'm not sure how this is gonna feel, and I want your opinion on it, Matt. You don't monetize your show, you monetize your audience.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, and I've said this before, these shows and these podcasts that have like millions of followers, millions of subscribers, the reason why they're popular is because of their audience. These hosts are engaging their audience. There's something about a host that just is drawing people in. And once you see them once, that's it. They're connected. They're hooked. And that's why I've said before, that's when we start doing these shows, we're very engaging with our audiences. Especially starting out, that is huge. To me, that is paramount, because the more engaged you are, the more these individuals will feel a part of something, and you're not just a show. You're a part of a living, like, being. Like, this business and what we're doing in this industry is a living being. You have to be able to feed it, and you have to keep your audience's attention. You can't just be drawn out, monotone, and just read off of a script. And I'm saying just off a script. You have to engage. You have to sell. That'll get your that'll get more growth than anything. And that's what you were saying earlier, about sharing. You just take 2 seconds. That's all it takes to share something out with no input on it. Just hit and share. That is probably the best way to get a starting podcast and show out there. Is just share, just a
Mhm.
quick share, and it's free. It's free to do.
And there's timing involved in this. So you share it out, you grow your audience, and this is something that that a lot of people don't understand. When it comes to supporting your show, an engaged audience, you'll get high levels of people who want to engage and follow your show. Aaron's one of them. Thanks, man. Oh, you're on Restream too. Yeah, I love this. I love this setting. We had a little bit of a rough time this morning. I think that was on me.
It could have been on me. Yeah,
Yep.
and that's something else too that a lot of people don't see. Like we talk about the behind the scenes stuff. When you're an active host on a show, there's a lot of hiccups. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if other industries have it. But with the
Yeah.
paranormal art, it's like classic. You start talking paranormal or ghost hunting, and all of a sudden, equipment just cuts out.
Cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, hopping back in, when we're looking at monetizing our audience, you have to have an audience.
Yeah.
So, as you're going through, I know with hosting with the platform that I'm on, I'm able to start doing ads and stuff once I break 400 downloads per episode. Most places are gonna have you do, 10,000 to 20,000 downloads per episode before you can do host read.
No.
Recent.
Sorry, my monitor just shut off on me.
Oh, no.
It shut off and kicked back on. I don't know.
Are you good? That could be
Yeah,
a Restream thing.
I don't know.
Oh, man.
I give
But,
up.
you, what is the percentage? So there's a high percentage of people that are gonna support your show by sharing it out, telling their friends, and helping you grow. With Ghost Hunter Advice, the questions we have, I've got, I think I've got 20 questions right now that I need to make episodes on from
Mhm.
people that have emailed in questions and engaged with the show. And that's not live. I'm not talking about doing the live stuff. I'm talking about traditional podcasting where we do the recording, the editing, we save the show, put it in the hopper, and then it's out for syndication. Um, Only 1 to 4% of your audience is actually gonna purchase premium content. If you're getting closer to 4%, 3 or 4%, you're on fire.
Yeah.
But really most shows, especially when they start, it's gonna be 1%. So before you start doing premium content, that show growth is incredibly important, to get you to a place where people are gonna want that. And then once you do premium content, which is a paywall, so
Mhm.
this is the stuff like, "Hey, subscribe for $5 a month." Now I'm using Libsyn, like, if you go into Apple Podcast on my other shows, not this one, you can subscribe to premium content for, I believe it's either $5 or $7 a month. Apple, if you do it on Apple, they have their own rules. You can also, we have our own app through Libsyn, so that people can download that if you're on Android and listen there. But basically, it's the regular feed. You get ad-free, content, and you get exclusive episodes. There are episodes of Truly Odd that will only air behind the paywall. Most of those are gonna be deep dives into cases, deep dives into paranormal activity, and some shows that are very similar to what we're putting out on the free feed, but they go a little deeper. And then we'll also be doing some monthly live streams on our Discord, which is invite only and will only be available to premium members. So,
Yeah.
like, having those little valuable nuggets in there that people want because they crave more connection with show hosts, because they want to be more involved in the community, and we also have a community, Truly
Mhm.
Odd. You can join and become an oddball. Um, yeah,
I did.
we, we we get together, we have a good time, and it allows people to connect with, and they're paying, so they're there for it. Um, and we're able to do this more. Basically, putting out all that premium content and stuff on top of doing a regular show. It takes this from being like 10 hours a week of editing, to being more like 20 or 30 hours a week working on a show. And it does eventually become a full time job if you're just looking at the hours, along with the money.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of missed opportunities I feel in, like, let's just say the paranormal side of it. We'll just stick with that because I think a lot of our audience is, investigators. If you're a host, what you can do as an idea to start off to test out the water, so to speak, is have your usual shows. And this is something that I'm actually thinking about doing. Have your usual show. Enjoy it, have fun with it, but that exclusive premium content, use as an investigation. Once or twice a month, just go out, investigate live, but only do it for the premium members. And just tell people you want raw, unedited footage. That's it. And, they have to get something out of it. There has to be in sales. There has to be that bait. There has to
Mhm.
be that prize. Something, something to get that your viewers and audience members hooked. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that type of content? I know I do,
Mhm.
and I know others do. Like Global Ghost Hunt, for example. That's a paid thing. People go out and investigate. They pay to play. It's no different than going out to a sporting event or, uh, I don't know, like an amusement park.
Mhm.
You got to pay to play, and that's the way it is, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that premium content and putting out that type of stuff.
You said something interesting there. So with your specific show and content, that doing the investigations is something that's probably going to draw in some people for that. Now,
Hmm.
when you are setting up your premium content, you have to know what people want.
Yep.
There's a couple ways to do it. One, like with Ghost Hunter Advice, when I was looking at doing premium content for this show and doing a paywall, I was going to do it through Patreon. And the
Hmm.
reason that I was going to do it through Patreon was because in premium only, I could run experiments and show how-tos on running specific experiments and the controls, stream that live, answer questions while I'm doing it. The paperwork, the different things that you need to run a ghost hunting team, I could put those as downloadables on Patreon and have that to go out to people. And for my audience in Ghost Hunter Advice, people who are looking to start teams, people who are looking for a more professional way to ghost hunt, that's premium content that would have spoken to them. With
Yep.
Truly Odd, it's me and Kristen, and the big reason people listen to that show is, one, yeah, we're talking about paranormal stuff, but we're getting into parts of the stories and the lore that haven't been treaded on a lot before. It's odd stuff that goes along with it. It's different things like, did you know that with Mothman, a big part of that story was that the place where Mothman was seen in that area was decommissioned military, and they made weapons there. They made explosives there, and there's a rumor that they were trying to make a jetpack for flying soldiers and bombings during World War II. So, like, we get into the things that aren't covered on a lot of different media when they're talking about these entities and these events.
Hmm.
So, getting deeper into that is something obviously we're gonna do on the paid content. But another big driver is just the chemistry between Kristen and I. Sometimes you, the host, and them just being able to connect with you more and have more content, that's the drive. I know with Jim Harold and the shows that I'm a premium member, and I go in and financially support. 9 times out of 10, it's not necessarily the content they're talking about. With Dave Jackson, it is 100% is 80% the content, 20% Dave, because that's how to podcast and how to do this stuff.
Yep.
But with, Jim Harold, with the Grave Talks and other shows that I have financially supported, it's been primarily just because I like the host. I'm like, "You know
Yeah.
what? I want more of their stuff and, deeper connection with this content. So I'll pay $5 a month or $9 a month or $12 a month for that premium membership."
No, 100%. And that's one thing when you have a co-host or somebody with you, like you and Kristen, even you and me, or when we've been on shows together, or Aaron's another good one. The personalities have got to do one or two things. They either have to completely match or completely mismatch, and that's just quality. That's entertainment. That's, again, putting on a quote unquote show. You have to
Mhm.
have that entertainment. Like, everybody loves watching the Wicked Queen and I together. They're still waiting for that beating that she's going to give me, but
That's why
but
they watch.
yeah, pretty much. But her and I, we have a lot of similarities, but we have a lot of differences. And you and Kristen are this. I feel the same way. You guys have that great chemistry together. You and I, we're a little more down. Like when I'm with you, hosting or like what we're doing today, I'm not the usual consultant. I'm more kind of mellowed out and like, okay, a little more professional because I'm trying to get to your level. I want to get, match what you're putting out. Um, but you have to have that great chemistry. And some people can do it by themselves, which God bless them. But again, it all comes down to the entertainment value of it. And with premium type content, there's a lot of things that people don't see behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Like what we were talking about, a lot of things happen, and sometimes content or funny content happens before you even hit live because there's not that pressure of a live camera in front of you. It's more of a relaxed, chilled, and it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And again, there's nothing wrong with any type of content, any type of content. And what I mean by that, folks, is what we do on the shows is a passion. It's a lot of fun. But if you want that premium stuff to see the behind the scenes stuff, oh, stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, Aaron
Listen.
says mellowed out. Do you even
Listen.
know the meaning of the word mellow? No, to play on
Listen.
that, like I'm a lot less, I guess, uptight, but I'm less scripted when I'm on with Matt because we're able to play off of each other. So we both take
Mhm.
our levels and we meet somewhere in the middle between our usual styles.
Yep.
And yeah, it
Yep.
makes a
And
really good show.
even when you were on What the Paranormal with me and Raymond,
Mhm.
or even when Brian was on, we saw a whole different side of both you and Brian on that show because that's just unscripted. Who knows what happens? When Aaron and I are gaming, Aaron and I are completely different people.
Mhm.
We're not the same what you see on the shows. Um, and it has to be that way. It's more relaxed, more natural. But again, from a sales perspective, if you ever been in sales, I know Tanner has, I have, you have to believe in your product and you have to put the focus on that. And I'm sorry folks, but as content hosts, like what we're doing, we are the product.
Yep.
We have to believe in ourselves. We have to make ourselves better. We have to always evolve, like what we were saying earlier. We have to always evolve the show. And you know, my show, Empowering My Field, did that start out the way I wanted it to? No, no, I switch things up. I make things different. I mean, my show has made drastic changes from when I first started, and thank God for that because the first shows, and it started out as a paranormal how-to. Now it's evolved into whatever EMF is. It's all about passions with everybody. It's opened up, and excuse me, ghost hunter advice even. What you're doing, your show has evolved. I've seen it.
Mhm.
I've seen
Quite a
your
bit.
show evolve, and everything from the equipment to the content to the people and even the way we interact with our guests.
Mhm.
And to me personally, I think every show, good or bad, has to evolve.
Yep.
And if you want to put out the premium content, if you want to do the paid advertising stuff like that, you have to invest. You invest your time, you invest money. You've got to put money out to make money. That's just that simple. That's just sadly the way it is.
Mhm.
And like, can you put out premium content with something like Canva? Just Canva. I'm just going to pick on Canva for right now because we've all used it. I think it is possible, not likely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm same boat with that. Now I'll use it to format stuff, but if you're making premium content, you're trying to make videos in Canva to put out, that's not gonna cut it.
No, you have
You
to.
really need something like if you're doing video content, you really, really, really need something like, Adobe.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I use Filmora Wondershare.
mhm, that's a good one.
And is it the cheapest? No. But is it worth it? And what I really like about Wondershare is you get automatic updates, pre-updates. You get pre-updates all the time. They're always, trying to improve it. And again, is it a pain in the butt to use? Yeah, ask Aaron. Aaron was the one who taught me it. It took a while,
Yep.
but you have to invest. You have to invest in your product. You have to invest in what you're doing to make the quality that people will
Mhm.
want to buy. Like, I'm not saying anyone's show is crap, so don't take But if you've got a bottom of the line microphone, bottom of the line camera setup, or even using your phone to record your content, it's not going to cut it. It is not. It's not that it's not possible. It's not likely.
Yep. And it
It's just
doesn't take much, like, to get into where you're making good sounding stuff. This setup that I have here was, the microphone, the soundboard, the arm, the other, between 250, $300. It gets you set up for good, crisp audio. Is it the best? No. Am I going to be upgrading to a Rode podcaster Duo because of how much better it sounds? Yeah. Am I going to be upgrading to the pod mics or maybe a top end condenser mic from Shure, one of the new Shure microphones? Yeah. Yeah. Eventually I'll be upgrading to those, but I don't wanna go out of pocket $1,200 on a new studio.
yeah,
I wanna get to a point and it is good enough now that I'm able to monetize it, so I'm gonna let the podcast pay for those updates. And the people that are paying for it and the people that are not, everybody's gonna benefit from it because it's gonna be a much better sounding production.
hmm
Paying, for Aud no, I almost said Audacity. Audacity's free.
yeah,
Paying for, something like, what Adobe,
yeah,
Audition. It's great. Your shows will sound better if you use that just with the
hmm
AI, with the different things that they have in there and controls. Yes, you'll get the best sounding show you've had using that, but it costs, and, that's something that the show, needs to get to a place where it can pay for it. I'll also be able to do it quicker.
yeah,
So here's the thing, when you are making a show, when you are leveling it up, there's 2 ways to pay. You can pay with time or you can pay for money. Currently, I'm in the middle. I used to do a lot of stuff by hand, and it took even longer to edit these shows than it does now, because I was going through and I wasn't using plugins and I wasn't using some of the new AI model tools and things they have to elevate the audio and do the mastering. I was doing it long form the way that I showed you how to do it on the podcast episode before, but adding even more layers and even more music and audio stuff into it. And it takes a while, so I paid with my time. Well,
yeah.
I'm getting to a place where it makes more sense to pay with money and have those things taken care of. Eventually, what most shows do, and I've talked to some friends of mine who have very successful podcasts, was one of the first things that they took off their plate so they can concentrate on content was hiring an editor.
Yeah.
So they hired somebody else to do it, and it's $400 or $500 a month to have somebody go through and edit those podcast episodes, but they were able to focus more on the content. They had more time for research, more time for scripting, more time to sit and actually make the audio good and make the content great, and their shows got a lot better. So when we're talking about monetization, we're talking about getting to a place where your show's leveling up, the content of your show actually levels up, and people do react and respond to that a lot better.
100%. And there's something though I want to hit on. And when we're talking monetization, folks, we're not saying making millions of dollars.
Mhm.
We're not talking that. What we're saying is this overhead that we're paying for these streaming services for everything. It gets that weight taken off. That's what we're talking about. So basically, it's the money that comes in to help pay for what we're doing. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with people doing that. And, like you were talking about updating your equipment. I've got a $80 microphone. I've got a $15 arm. It's cheap, but it works.
Mhm.
You know, one of the biggest problems I've had is when the Wicked Queen and I are together, she's got to be muted because she's got her mic, I have my mic, and it picks up. We're literally like 3 feet from each other.
I've got a fix for that. So this soundboard here is relatively cheap. This is actually just a $40 microphone. But it runs through this soundboard and it levels up a lot of the audio. So Kristen's microphone is actually right on the other side of this office. This has active denoise that I was playing with on some videos earlier.
Mhm.
If you turn that on, that'll take that echo off. It's also going to do, oh shit, you got one.
Now, do you want to know the fun part?
Yeah. What's up?
Not to cut you off on that because that is great advice for people. This does not This doesn't like our microphones.
Oh yeah. So what's the input? Is it the 3 millimeter jack or is it a XLR?
Actually, this one has it does have the 3.5,
Uh-huh.
but both of ours are USB.
Ah,
I did buy an adapter.
mhm.
I do have adapters for it. There is a couple of plugins. I have at least 3 for the inputs for the microphones. I do have 3 for the outs. Um, Problem is something, I don't know whether it's a software issue or just my computer being stupid, but it doesn't like it. It does not like our microphones with the camera,
Oh,
the setup.
no. So the microphone you're using, is it a dynamic mic or a condenser?
Dynamic.
Okay. So dynamic mics, they need more gain, and on something like that, it's probably very similar to the one that I have here.
Hmm.
It's not gonna run phantom power out to the mic. It's not gonna do anything to increase the decibel level, and it probably records at 40 dB. For a dynamic mic, you're gonna need an interface that'll, at bare minimum, go up to 60. Really, you wanna go up to 70 dB.
Hmm.
If you get
See, this is what we're talking about, folks. There's a lot that goes into what we're doing.
Okay, so this is the Mayano
Ooh.
um, AUPM 360TR. Yeah, that's a sexy name.
Hmm.
It
Rolls
is
off the tongue.
right. It's a condenser mic, but it's specifically made to go XLR into the 3.5 millimeter,
Hmm.
and it should work with that with enough power to give you the level of audio you need. These are 30. I think actually right now, if you go to Mayano.com, they're about $30 a piece. So for $60, you should be able to run it to that and get really good audio for your podcast.
Oh, there you go. See,
Yeah, quick fix.
and what's fun is the Wicked Queen is literally like, I'd say 5 feet away,
Mhm.
5 feet away from me, and that's just, again, updating and upgrading and evolving what we're doing. Like, if she's doing her thing, she's fine. She sounds great. Sounds great on her end. I sound, I guess, okay on my end. I haven't heard any complaints about it. It's a great microphone. I did put the money into it, but again, needs to evolve,
Mhm.
especially if we want to put out that premium content. Like, her and I were talking about doing some gaming together. We were talking about doing a podcast together, um, and just being on. It's a pain in the butt. It is an absolute pain in the butt doing it, but there are fixes and there are ways to do it. But again, cost money.
Now, this is another really good one from Aaron. So, Voice Banana's product called Voice Meter.
Hmm.
Yes, there's certain programs in recording, like if you're doing a pre-recorded show, that you can run that into and actually mix both microphones together to record the audio. That's a quick fix. I just like having the physical product there, but that one, yeah, I
Hmm.
think that is a pretty cost-effective one.
Yeah. Well, again, Aaron, if you have the time to teach me this stuff, by all means. It's funny. I was asked recently about technology and stuff like this, and great guy. His name is Len. Um, he was asking me about all this stuff, and I told him, I was like, "Listen, I was like, I am not even close to an expert when it comes to the technology side of it. If it's running, I'm happy. Don't ask me how it runs or why it runs. It turns on. It's good enough for me. I
Mhm.
am not. I'm not tech savvy. I have individuals like Tanner and Aaron to help me out with that.
Oh, man. But, and this is stuff like these are things that I learned back behind premium content with different shows and content creators that were teaching podcasting.
Yeah.
And it was a bit more expensive than $5 a month because it was basically a podcasting school and audio engineering school. But, yeah, that's another thing. Again, it's all about the value. What are people gonna use this for? If it's just entertainment, it's not gonna be as valuable as something that someone's gonna turn around and use to make money themselves. You can get away with charging a bit more for the investment there. But, like, with all this, you've noticed, like, we haven't said anything absolutely crazy when it comes to the cost of this. It is just expensive. when you put everything together, $30, $40 for a microphone, the soundboard. If you get everything together, you're looking at around 250. The softwares, the licensing gets expensive, but again,
Yeah.
that's down the road after you've done some stuff. But when it comes to monetization, when it comes to premium content, a big question that I get and that I had before I started getting into this is when's the right time to do it?
I don't think there's like a set for me. There's not a set timeline.
Mhm,
It's just when does that content creator feel like they're ready for it?
mhm,
And again, you have to be proud of what you're doing, and you have to invest. I mean, again, we keep saying about investing, and I'm not saying save up, drop $1,000 right away. No, take your
mhm.
time with it, do what you can. Um, as far as when to monetize, that's completely up to you. I
Yeah,
mean, I haven't monetized any of my stuff yet, but I still have different things available to take some of the overhead off, like my merch, or what I do for Paravid Studios. And, I'm writing my book, stuff like that. I can make money off of. Have I? Not really, but it'll get there. It'll get there, and you just have to have faith with it and just take your time with it. And I've been doing podcasting for, oh God, almost 5 years now.
yeah,
And it takes time, but I don't have the money to invest in the show. I don't have the time to invest in the show right now. I mean, like what Tanner's doing is something unique to him, and that's good. That's really good. He's in a great situation. I, on the other hand, am not. Nor do I have the patience at this point in time to
yeah.
sit down and do all that.
And that, like, it depends on your personal situation. When is it time to monetize your podcast? You have to look at why you're monetizing your podcast. Specifically, we're talking premium content. When it comes to advertisements and, like, running, host read ads, running auto ads, there's thresholds that you have to meet as far as listenership and download, like a certain audience size
Yeah.
before that becomes available, and most people are gonna do that before premium content. I generally, and this comes from a podcast coach that I follow. When it comes to getting to a place where you can actually charge and make something from it with premium content, you are probably looking at somewhere between 18 months and 3 years of podcasting before it becomes something that's actually viable. There's a couple of things that happen, like Matt's saying, like you need to be at a place where you're comfortable with your content. You need to be at a place where you feel good charging for it. You believe in your content and you're giving people value. You're not just taking money and putting out the same old thing. You're actually providing value with that premium content. For me, doing the numbers on what I'm planning to charge for premium content now, um, my audience size needs to be at least 2 to 3,000 downloads per episode within, I'll say, a 30-day time frame. So that tells me, and if I can keep that about 80 to 90% listen through on the podcast, that tells me I have a good engaged audience at a 2 to 3 thousand people. I'm shooting average is 1%. If you're doing good, you get like 3 to 4%. Yeah, so I'm shooting to have somewhere between 40 and 60 people in that 3,000 person audience that'll actually subscribe to premium content.
Yeah.
And that top line is going to bring in a little shy of $300 a month. Which
And
makes sense because 3,300, I'm looking somewhere around that 10% when I'm looking at dollars to actual people, of listeners, and that's good, and as that grows and we hit the 10,000 mark, we hit the 20,000 mark of listeners with the podcast, that pot grows, but that $300 a month allows me to upgrade the audio. I'm not taking any money out of it at that point. Now, once we get to where we're doing 2 to 4,000 a month in revenue, that's when I'm gonna start paying myself from it.
yep.
That's when it becomes a job. Well, it's a job now, but that's when it becomes an actual job that brings a salary and brings things into my household and not just into the podcast itself. Because that's the goal for me. With Truly Odd Studios, This is a for-profit business venture with these shows that we're doing, and it is a 3-year ramp up to get the return on the shows. First, we stop going out of pocket, and then we make back the initial investment. And then we grow and we start taking money out in the form of salaries as hosts. With Truly Odd Studios, we have partners, me and Kristen, and then the editors and the people that we bring in. We're paying people before we pay ourselves, because before we get to that point, we'll have a podcast editor. So the employees will be making money before we do as business owners, and that's something that happens in this field.
Yeah.
And that's my plan.
Yeah. And, again, if I could get to the point where, I could leave my 9 to 5 and, well, not really 9 to 5, I'm overnights, but if I could leave my regular job and do this, absolutely. But the first thing I would do is make sure bills are taken care of, make sure my overhead, I have none. It's all taken care of. And it's a solid revenue. It's not, okay, well, am I going to be able to do it this month? Am I going to be able to do it next month? Yeah, I'm guaranteed. And I want people to understand too that these viewers, the size of the subscribers and all that stuff, your audience size, isn't an overnight thing. This is something you have to build, and you have to put out content. No one's going to want to subscribe. Thousands of people are not going to subscribe to one video.
Yep.
Not going to happen. You're going to have to invest that time.
Well, thousands of people are not going to subscribe to 300 videos if you haven't been consistent doing it. When you launch a show and you set that, so like with Truly Odd, our episodes are coming out where we know that we can be consistent with it. It's one episode drops every 2 weeks, so they get 2 a month. Once the audience size gets to a certain level, we'll kick it up to once a week, because we found a sweet spot with show growth there. But we have to be in a place where our voice is dialed in. The workflow for the podcast has to be dialed in, because those first couple episodes that you work on are going to take a lot longer than episode 50 or episode 60, because you don't have your workflows dialed in.
Yep.
And once you get to that and you're consistent, your show grows. I do not financially support shows if I think that their premium content is going to come out on the same crappy schedule as their free content.
Yep. And you have to schedule that. You have to schedule that premium content. It's not just because your audience expects it. It's, you have to have time to promote it out. Give people time to have a chance to see it, to view it, to want to be a part of it. Plan it out. Like when we do these live shows, if we have something really big, really special planned out, we're going to set it weeks in advance, and it's going to be a certain day, and have people look forward to it. Give them time to share it. That's Jonathan Myers, my brother. Hopefully everybody's okay your way, Jonathan. Jonathan's in the Carolinas.
Oh man, yeah. I hope you're doing okay. We had some people we know lost their houses there on the coast. Rough.
It's been a bad week.
yeah, man, it really has. I hope everybody's doing okay out there, and getting back to your lives. And I hope the insurance stuff goes smoothly.
Yeah, hopefully everyone's safe. But we're talking about investing time and money and energy and stuff like this. But I have a great example. So I usually have, this is my mouse, Razer, was a Death Adder Essential. Love it, absolutely love it. Wicked Queen bought it for me. I've been using this for months. Went out on me. Scroll wheels all screwed up. Obviously, I don't have the money at the moment to get a brand new one. $10. Went to Walmart, $10. Got a $10 mouse. This works just fine. Am I planning on getting a better one? Yeah, especially for what I do. I need that mouse to perform. Same way with my keyboard. Same way with the monitors. I have a dual screen. I have 2 monitor system right now. And would I like to upgrade it? Okay, good. I'm glad, brother. I'm glad. I love Jonathan. Jonathan's so cool. It's all about, can you do it within your limits? You can't. don't take out a loan to do this stuff. I just, and I think Tanner agrees with me on this one. You don't go to the bank and take out $10,000 and say, I'm going to set up my podcasting. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
I had that talk with an author. They wanted to take out a loan to because they were starting a self-publishing business. I'm like, no, grow it organically. It's a hobby. Most businesses, okay, before this age where we could go out and start an app and we had all these technology companies, um, businesses started as hobbies. You did it as something you were passionate about, something that you did, maybe a side hustle, and it was bringing in money, but it started as something very small. And then you grew it into a
Mhm.
business. That's what content creation is. That's what podcasting is and should be. Don't take out loans. Grow slow, grow organic.
Well, I mean, look at even Apple.
Mhm,
Apple started in a garage, and now look what it is. Google started somewhere, Netflix started somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere, and you have to, like Tanner said, grow it organically. Take the time, put out content, and for someone like me who doesn't script anything, I don't script any of my shows. I still plan out a little bit on what I want to talk about and who I want to talk to, and stuff like that. And it does take time, energy, and sadly money. You have to save up and invest. It's not just take it all out and throw it right to it. No, take your time with it. Find the free content stuff first.
mhm.
I
Well,
mean,
sorry, that's why I went
you're good.
over free sound. That's free sound effects, free podcasting music. You can go ahead and increase production value without paying $150 a month
Yeah.
or a year. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about we spoke a little bit about video editing. It took me a while to jump into the Wondershare, the Filmora Wondershare. Why? Because it costs money. I was using Canva, $13, like $13 a month for Canva, and I started doing my videos.
Mhm,
Were they the greatest? Nope, but it worked. It worked for
mhm,
what I did, what I needed them for. And once I wanted to evolve it and move it up, then I started investing, and I could invest in it. My bills were still taken care of, my family were still taken care of, and I had that a little bit extra, so I sacrificed some of the other things that I wanted to do to make the show better.
mhm.
And that's where Paravid Studios came in. Paravid Studios, I mean, I'm not out to make millions of dollars with Paravid Studios by any stretch, but just free videos will take care of it. We'll take care of it for the month.
Yep. And
It's that
another
simple.
thing is just making sure you're in a good spot. Like when you we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're just talking about setting up premium content, and we'll get into like exactly how to do that here in the next couple minutes because it's not very complicated.
No.
But if you are looking to step full time into a creative endeavor, like I am wanting to go full time into podcasting and writing my books and my podcast. That's what I want my day job to be. There's steps that have to happen first.
Mhm.
All debt has to be paid off. My student loans need to be gone because that reduces my liability. That reduces how much money that I have to make per month. I want the majority of my mortgage paid off, so that that's one less thing that we have to worry about. So that when jumping over into this full time, yeah, I can take a cut because you're going to if like I do sales, stepping from sales into content, I'm going to take a little bit of a cut. It's going to drop me down some, and I want to be able to not have to have my family drop their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, having debt paid off, having savings before you step into anything, you're doing premium content, you get to a place where you're making good money and you're like, "All right, I'm making what I make in my day job, I can step out." Yeah, 6 months minimum of your salary in the bank before you step out into a creative endeavor full time, because
Yep.
you're gonna have some ups and downs, and you're gonna wanna make sure that you have that savings because there is gonna be a lull. We had, ad revenue dropped off, this year. It's picked back up, but, there was a couple months where and there's a couple of shows where premium content with the economy getting so bad, it dropped off, and if they didn't have those savings, they wouldn't have made it through that little dip.
Yep.
So, set yourself up there, don't go out of pocket on a whole lot of stuff, get the necessities taken care of, get yourself to a good position financially before you step out full time, and it takes years. This isn't gonna happen overnight. Like I
No.
said, it starts off as a passion, you build it up, it becomes a side hustle becomes a business. You take the proper steps, and then that business becomes your livelihood.
Yeah. And create yourself a budget.
Mhm.
And not just the family budget, but your budget for what you're doing, the licensing, the subscriptions, everything, and create that budget and find out how much do you actually need to make, and then save that. And I think to me personally, 6 months, that's short.
Mhm.
That's not even enough. At least a year. Save up for a year's worth.
Yeah, there's a
At
lot of
least.
people that like a year. I know King Coleman says a year before you step out in your own business. I like 6 months. And when I say 6 months, that's 6 months of the business.
Yep.
So you've got 6 months salary saved for your business. You still have your regular savings and emergency fund over to the side, which we recommend like 3 to 6 months of personal savings, 6 months of business savings.
Yeah, 100%. And especially think of something. Think of it this way: Christmas and December. Not a lot of people are out spending money for what our content is.
Mhm.
They're not going to subscription stuff like that because they have their families they want to provide for. They want to give them gifts and stuff like that. So they're not going to want to put into your content, unless you are paying the yearly subscriptions. But make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. Make sure you are comfortable and confident in not just your content and what you're putting out, but your financial side of it too. Make sure you are comfortable and confident with it, that you can survive, because there are going to be a lot of times where there's going to be dry spells.
Mm. Yeah, that's a lot of people don't think about that, and that's a big reason why businesses fail.
Yeah. They
Uh,
jump in head first and hit their head on the shallow pool.
I did that when I started my first business. I jumped in way too soon, but I had contracts with the PI business. I had contracts with companies, so I was able to pull myself out and build up that savings. I got lucky, and that's not a like I made a bad decision to jump in way too soon and leave my day job to do that business, but I got lucky and was able to pull it out. Sometimes you'll get lucky. Most of the time, you're not going to get lucky.
Yep.
So take care of yourself and make good decisions.
And when you do decide to switch it to me, when you switch it over into a full-time job, make sure you have the revenue already coming in. Make sure it's already there. Make sure you're seeing a pattern with it, and that'll help you plan it out better. So for me
I'll
personally,
be right back.
okay, I guess I'm hosting. So what I'm basically saying is go through and find out when are your dry seasons or your slower seasons, what months are good for you, what months are bad for you, and come up with a game plan for yourself. You always want to sit there and have some sort of game plan in place, and then have a fail safe. I mean, I see Mark Lee. What's up, Mark? See, the reason why I haven't pulled the trigger for me is because I haven't had that stabilization that you would need to do something like this.
Ah, sorry about that.
No, I was just rambling. Um, but no, I was saying, when you decide to actually do this, find out when the months are. When are your good months, bad months? Come up with a pattern, come up with a plan, and have that stability in place before you actually do it. Make sure you're 100% guaranteed, and then have a backup plan. What if this fails? What if something happens? What if you lose a sponsorship? What if you lose an advertising thing? You know, make sure you have a plan in place for everything.
Yeah, and speaking of having a plan, when it comes to actually doing monetization, when we're talking about premium content, there's a couple of ways to set it up, and it's going to depend on your podcast hosting platform.
Hmm.
Now, currently, I'm with Libsyn for my podcast, and I've looked at changing. I'm pulling up let's see, some of their stuff. Actually, they took down that site, so I won't pull it up. So basically, with Libsyn, with my hosting place, I'm able to take my content. I'm able to create subscription-based only content through Libsyn Glow, and that'll send out subscription only to Apple. And then it also creates a listening app for people who are on Android or that don't listen in Apple. When they subscribe to it, they can they unlock all of that premium content that I've created inside of a podcast player that's an app on their phone. There's a couple of others. There's Supportcast, which has become incredibly popular for some of the bigger shows. That does the same thing, but instead of only sending it out to Apple and doing its own, app that people have to download, that'll send the premium content out to their favorite app or player. Basically, you contact these places, you let them know what size your podcast is. You're going to need a couple thousand listeners, unless you use Captivate or Libsyn, because then you can start any time. If you're using a third party, like Supportcast, you are supporting cast, you're going to need a couple thousand listeners to get that thing rolling, because they want to make sure that they're getting their cut off of what's projected for your podcast to make and bring in. You're always going to be splitting your revenue with people. Apple takes a 30% cut of everything. Patreon's another way to do it. You can set stuff up and you upload your stuff directly into Patreon. I was a customer of several shows in Patreon. I'm not a huge fan of the experience. I'm big on customer experience. So I like personally to be able to access stuff inside of my app, the app that I like to use for podcasting, which for me is Apple. I know some people like Dogcatcher and some of the others, so I want them to be able to access premium content inside of that app that they prefer to use because they like it, they know it, it's a great experience for them. So I like things like Supporting Cast or Captivate. Captivate will host your podcast very similar to Libsyn, but with their premium content, it'll send it out to all these different podcasting apps. It's a lot easier than it sounds.
And that's the thing, is getting exposure. You to get these types of listeners and subscribers and stuff like that, you have to have that exposure, and you have to be willing to put it out literally everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about Parapost, what we're on right now, is because we as hosts should all support each other. So there should be at least X amount of shares. We should all just share each other out and share the community out. And unless it's changed, sales is a numbers game too.
Mhm.
The rule of 5: for every one person you tell, you're going to tell 5 people at minimum. That's what it should be. And it's the same way on social media. Once you share it out, like I have over 1,000 followers on TikTok. Don't know how or why, but I do. And you start sharing that out, you start getting it out, and the word of mouth will help you. I would just put it that way. I'm trying to think of layman's terms for this, but there word of mouth is probably the strongest way
Yep.
of advertising. And it doesn't matter how it is or where it happens. Just share it out, start talking about it, and getting people involved. And when you see something and somebody's doing a content or whatever, invite them. Even if you don't think they like, for the paranormal, even if you think that person may not like it, they might get a kick out of it. And I'm going to just say, as far as the paranormal side of it, folks, this is our time. This is the perfect time to do stuff like this, is because Halloween's right around the corner. People are thinking about the paranormal now, and that's something else that you have to plan when you're doing these podcasts and you're doing these shows, is what time of year is it?
Mhm.
I did a show with Scott Morton, Mr. Fedora, and a couple of our friends for the 4th of July. That performed very well. And it was just a backyard barbecue where we just hung out and drank and just talked whatever nonsense we wanted to talk. That did
Mhm.
very well. My New Year's show, that always does very well. Play to that, play to the holidays, play to people. That'll get you a better connection with your audience.
Yeah, and it's all about connecting. Like, you gotta build the audience, you gotta connect with the audience, and they need to want more of you to want premium content. But yeah, so plan your show, and this is Dave Jackson's, like, 4 steps. You gotta plan, launch, grow, and monetize in that order, because it's your audience who is buying the products and getting into that premium content that you're listing. You gotta grow your show, find your voice, find a good production value that connects with people. Make sure that they're listening to your show and the engagement's high, and then start, I don't wanna say asking for money, but start putting out a premium content and premium products that are going to resonate with your audience, that they're gonna find value from, and they're gonna want. And then keep growing the show and you'll grow. You could grow this into a real business. You could grow it into something that's a great side income. That's just paying some bills with it is success to some people, and success is going to be your definition because it is your show. But we are coming up on the hour. Matt, man, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Hey, brother, always a great time and always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Likewise. All right, guys, make sure to head over if you haven't already. Follow Matt at the Paranormal Consultant. He puts out a lot of great episodes, a lot of great content. I know he's currently working on a book, how to, and stuff in the paranormal. We're gonna be keeping an eye on that, seeing when it's coming out. If you guys have questions about content creation as an industry or content creation as a hobby and how it plays in with what you're doing, email me, ghosthunteradvice@gmail.com, or head over to the website, ghosthunteradvice.com. Click that little microphone down in the bottom and ask your question to have it answered on the show. You can always come up here live and I'll troubleshoot things like what we did with the audio earlier.
Which, by the way, folks, if you're using Restream, use Chrome.
yeah, use Chrome. It does not like Edge.
No, we found that out.
Yep. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you on the next episode here of Ghost Hunter Advice, Paranormal Podcaster Help Desk, the longest name in podcasting today.